60 minutes before every game, we get you ready for tip. It's Warriors Live, and it starts now.
Here we go. Big game for the Warriors. Must win, if I say so myself. I know technically it's not a must win, but from a mentality standpoint, you can't lose to the San Antonio Spurs. Welcome to Warriors Live, presented by Xfinity 10G, the network made for streaming. I am Jason Dumas. And man, we have a lot to talk about today. Steph Curry will not be playing. As we know, he sprained that ankle a few days ago against the Chicago Bulls. They avoided the worst. It could have been way, way worse, especially with Steph Curry. We know his history of ankle injuries. They nagged him for the first 3 years of his career, but it was just a minor sprain. And you know, if you've ever played sports, especially basketball, he twisted his ankle, sore. Not as sore as the Warriors thought it might be. The next day, they said it reacted well to his ice treatment right after the game. Right after that game, he didn't speak to media. Steve Kerr came in about 20 minutes after that Bulls game and told us that his ankle was already submerged in a cold tub. Woke up the next morning, wasn't feeling as bad as he feared it could have been. And he won't be out long. You know, it's just semantics at this point. They play the Spurs tonight. They play the Spurs again on Monday. Then they have a road game at Dallas. If I were to guess, my educated guess after, you know, just seeing and hearing what the coaching staff has been saying publicly, I think he's going to miss the next 3 games just to be safe. But if you are who you think you are, as in this Warriors team, they shouldn't have any issues beating the San Antonio Spurs without Steph Curry. Of course, it's not ideal. Steph makes the team go, but the San Antonio Spurs probably are the worst team in the league. I have to look exactly at the standings. It's either them, Detroit, or Washington. But, I mean, tomato, they all stink. So they should be able to beat the San Antonio Spurs without Steph Curry. The Spurs have the 3rd worst record in the NBA. The only 2 teams worse are the Detroit Pistons and Jordan Poole's Washington Wizards. Now, for tonight's game, no Steph Curry, as we said. Let's go through the entire injury report. This injury report is brought to you by Boxer & Gerson, Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping injured workers get their lives back for over 40 years. For more information, visit boxerlaw.com. So I already touched on Steph Curry. He has that right ankle injury. Trayce Jackson-Davis, he came in questionable with an ankle injury, but pregame, Steve Kerr said he expects Trayce to play and will be available. Meanwhile, GP2 is questionable. He is sick. So hopefully GP2 can get over that cold. I would love to see him get out there and play because he's just had the worst luck all season long with injuries. And just from a human standpoint, forget basketball, GP2, one of the all-time good guys in the NBA. You want to see him healthy, flying around, doing what he loves. So it's nothing serious regardless, but hopefully he can get over that cold and get some minutes in tonight. And then the freak of nature, Victor Wembanyama, he is out with the ankle injury, and I don't even believe he is in the Bay Area. I think he stayed home from this road trip. And remember, the Warriors turn around and they play the Spurs in San Antonio in 2 days. So it would make sense if he's not in the arena tonight. But like I said, the Warriors have to beat the Spurs regardless of whether Steph Curry plays. They just lost a game to the lowly Bulls. Yes, I know the Bulls are playing way better basketball post All-Star break. They have some good players. DeMar DeRozan, you could just tell he's a veteran because Jonathan Kuminga has been playing pretty good on-ball defense this season, and DeRozan was just young balling him, pump fakes, mid-range, but that's what he's done for 10 years. Kuminga has had a great season. That's just a tough matchup for a young kid because sometimes when you've been in the NBA so long and you have such a high basketball IQ like DeMar DeRozan, you're going to get your buckets on people, and that's exactly what we saw a few nights ago. But anyway, my long-winded point is that the Warriors shouldn't be losing to a team like the Bulls with all that at stake. The Warriors are trying to get out of that play-in spot and get a regular playoff spot. And when you have the Lakers playing good basketball in front of you, you got the Kings who been up and down this season, but are in front of you. There's a couple other teams that are in front of the Golden State Warriors, the Phoenix Suns, the Dallas Mavericks, New Orleans Pelicans. Each and every game is very, very crucial from here on out. I think there's 20 games left in the season. So the Warriors have to beat the teams they're better than. And the Warriors have the most forgiving schedule out of all of those teams trying to get those last play-in spots. Remember, 7, 8, 9, 10, those 4 slots are the teams that are in the play-in. So 1 through 6, you don't have to plan that weird little round-robin tournament. You can just get right to it. So right now, the Golden State Warriors, they are in the 10 spot. They're pretty safe there because the team that's in 11 is the Houston Rockets. They're about 5.5 games back of Golden State. It would take a colossal failure for the Warriors to fall out of that 10 spot. But the Lakers only a half game in front of Golden State. The Dallas Mavericks only a game and a half in front of Golden State. Mind you, the Warriors play Dallas 3 times this season coming up. So you sweep Dallas, that could be right there. That could flop you with them. And then in that 7 seed, the one right before the last playoff spot, you have the Kings. And the Kings, they're only 3 games up on Golden State. And then in that last 6 spot, you got Phoenix, who are 3.5 games. So the Warriors win a lot of basketball games. They can get out of this playing round. It's going to start tonight. As I said, you can't lose to teams like San Antonio. Steve Kerr said pregame, Chris Paul is going to get the start. Chris Paul has had a pretty good season, in my opinion, here in Golden State, but he dramatically changes the vibe of the team. You just have to run different stuff when Chris Paul is out there and he's playing. And Steve Kerr, said, I quote, "We will lean on certain actions that Chris Paul likes to run." We know Chris Paul is a pick and roll point guard. He has gotten so many players, particularly post players in this league, paid over the last 15 years or so, however long he's been in the NBA. So it'll be interesting. But you know who's been flourishing as of late? Trayce Jackson-Davis. He has certainly made himself known as a lob threat in this Golden State Warriors offense. So I expect CP3 to really look for Trayce Jackson-Davis. We know he has a tweaked ankle, but he looked good against the Bulls. And obviously that game against the Bucks, in my opinion, right before that Bulls game, he had the best game of his career. He is really trending up. And Steve Kerr said actually after that Bucks game, we are being intentional about getting Trayce ready for postseason basketball. That is something I really, really just love to hear because we didn't hear that with Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga their first couple years in the league. And a lot of people, myself included, think they could have been brought along a little quicker and really thrusted into the fire, sink or swim league. And clearly both Moody and Kuminga has shown they can swim. We wish Steve Kerr had have done that a little earlier and got the fruits of that labor a little earlier in their career, but it's neither here or there. Pointless to harp on it now, but I'm happy that Steve Kerr is intentional about getting a guy like Trayce Jackson-Davis, guy like Brandon Podziemski ready for postseason basketball. Because I look around the league and some of the other top teams in the league, they do trust young guys. So I love seeing Steve Kerr trust his young guys a little more. It's going to be interesting as this season plays out. But, Klay Thompson, obviously, he's been coming off the bench. He will come off the bench again tonight. He's responded well, in my opinion. We know it was a struggle. They didn't just go to him and say, "Klay, you're going to come off the bench from here on out." And Klay smiled and said, "Yes, sir." It ain't go down like that. We all know anyone who pays close attention to the Warriors, close attention to some of the really good Warriors reporters, it was a struggle. And this was about 2 years in the making. Klay coming off the bench, those thoughts started a couple years ago, and it's finally taken to fruition. Klay had to get in the right mindset. He had to be accepting of this role for it all to work, for it not to be just an uncomfortable atmosphere. and he is completely balled in. Credit to him, because when you're someone with so much equity in the locker room, in the organization, who is so accomplished in this league, these guys have ego, and that's not a bad thing. The ego is what actually helped them get to the NBA. They have a lot of pride. So when you tell someone like Klay Thompson, you know what, essentially, we can be real. Essentially, you're getting demoted to the bench. Now, that's not to say you're not going to finish games and all that stuff, because finishing the game matters more really than starting it. But it happened because he wasn't playing well. We don't have to lie to each other. It wasn't like Steve Kerr was like, you know what, we just rather you come off the bench. He wasn't playing well, so he got relegated to the bench. The team wasn't playing well. He wasn't playing well. This just seemed to work a little better. The Warriors have had a great month of February. Steve Kerr won Coach of the Year in February. Steve Kerr won Western Conference Coach of the Month in February. So the Warriors have been playing better basketball with a Klay Thompson who is bought into this new role. That is integral in this team playing good basketball. Then obviously you have Draymond Green. Since he's come back from that indefinite suspension, he has done all the right things. He is shooting the leather off the ball. We call him Traymon now. And he's been leading this team vocally and by example. And that's all you can really ask for him. In my opinion, him and Steph Curry, obviously, they're the two most important guys on this roster. They're going to go as far as those guys take them. Obviously, you need contributions from your role players. No team wins anything of significance without their role players playing good basketball. But Steph and Draymond, they have really been the guys that make this team roll. So people are going to have to step up with Steph being out tonight. But it's not like you're playing a world beater. Like I said, you're playing the San Antonio Spurs. They're just not a good team. They've won 13 games all season long. They're 13-50. They've already been eliminated. They've been eliminated from postseason contention for like a month already. And like, what are you going to let Keldon Johnson beat you? Devin Vassell, you want to let them beat you? Those guys, you just can't. Zach Collins, these are guys. Hold Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson is a really good player. But outside of Keldon Johnson, these are guys that are NBA role players. Keldon is even probably a role player on a really good team, but they're not guys who should beat you. They're not guys who are better than Jonathan Kuminga, in my opinion. They aren't guys who are better than Draymond Green. They aren't guys who are better than Klay Thompson, Brandon Podziemski, although he's young. This Warriors team, I should mention Moses Moody because he is the consummate pro. Everybody talks about Kevon Looney being the consummate pro, and he is too. I don't mean to pit them together because that's just not, it's not my intention. But Moses, what he has sacrificed and his just constant positive attitude and positive energy has been invaluable to this team, because Moody could really have negative energy with how his career has gone up to this point. He's jerked in and out of the lineup. Whoa. And sometimes people are human. It's easy to let negative energy resonate in the locker room when you're doing everything you can to get playing time. And every time you get playing time and an opportunity, you play well, and then all of a sudden you find yourself out of the rotation a couple days later. It's easy to be frustrating, especially for someone Moses Moody's age. This guy is 21 years old, 22 maybe. He spent 1 year at Arkansas, and this is his third year in NBA. Like, he's a young kid. And we saw how Jonathan Kuminga has responded over the years when he is frustrated. Those reports come out, and he doesn't even say it off the record. He had a report with C.J. Holmes, who was then with the San Francisco Chronicle, basically complaining about his playing time. And then earlier this season, he had a report on the record with The Athletic. And you know what? Moses Moody is not like that. Now, I'm not even blaming Jonathan Kuminga for doing what he did. He's a human being, and he was upset. And to be frank, you know what? I do think there was times where he had a legitimate beef with how he was being handled and utilized on this team. But my point is this: Moses Moody could make things very uncomfortable for people around him with some of the ways he's been utilized on this team, but he is a professional. So I think he deserves that credit because he could make things real uncomfortable. And when things get uncomfortable and you get that toxicity in the locker room, it negatively affects the whole team. Whether you want to pretend it doesn't or not, it's just everybody is human. Everybody has emotions. So credit to Moses Moody. Now, like I said, I got to give our sponsors some love. Warriors Live, we're presented by Xfinity. At home or on the go, you'll get the fastest internet to all of your devices. That's Xfinity 10G. Now, back to this game, I wonder if Pop was out in Russian Hill at his favorite restaurants. There's a story that Pop eats at this Italian restaurant pretty much every single time he comes to the Bay Area. It's on Hyde Street. It's in Russian Hill. It's on the tip of my tongue, but Pop is one of those guys. He has a lot of traditions. San Francisco is apparently one of his top NBA cities, the Bay Area, I should say, one of his top NBA cities, because obviously he coached for years coming to Oakland. Now he's in San Francisco. But he is a legend, and I'll say this. Man, it's disappointing for some of these Warriors fans or just basketball fans in general, because I actually know a few personally who I talked to who are upset Victor is not playing tonight. Victor is one of the more unique players to have ever come through the NBA. He might be the most unique player we've ever seen in our life. I'm not saying he's the best player we've ever seen in our life. I'm not saying he's this, but just from literally the definition of unique, this guy is 7'4", 7'5", arms dangled to his knees. He shoots threes. It's insane. It's literally like he has the superpowers from those aliens in Space Jam. When I called him an alien at the top of the show, I wasn't being facetious. I'm saying it all in jest, but you just don't see human beings built like that. It's crazy. I have seen Victor in person several times, dating back to Summer League. It's nuts. So, it kind of stinks that he is not playing, but it helps the Warrior. Victor is averaging 21 and 10, 3.5 blocks per game, which leads the NBA, over a steal per game. Like, he's the real deal. He is absolutely the real deal. I think he's 18 or 19 years old. If he doesn't get bit by the injury bug over the longevity of his career, then we are going to see a very, very special player. Now, I actually just got an update from my producer. Shout out Sterling. Trayce Jackson-Davis, man, I was just talking him up. He is starting at center for the Warriors tonight. It moves Andrew Wiggins to the bench. So what did I say, man? Look, I don't like to toot my own horn or anything. I said the Warriors are going to run different actions with Chris Paul starting. What has Chris Paul done his whole career and mastered? That pick and roll. Who is the best pick and roll lob threat on this team as of late? What I also said, Trayce Jackson-Davis. Steve Kerr, for all you people who talk trash on Steve Kerr, he ain't no dummy. He knows he has Chris Paul starting. He's putting that lob threat in the starting lineup with Chris Paul. We have seen Trayce catch so many alley-oops over the past 2-3 games. That Bucks game was insane. So that is going to be a wrinkle we all need to keep an eye on. So our starters for the Warriors, Chris Paul, Brandon Podziemski, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond Green, and Trayce Jackson-Davis. It's also interesting, this whole Andrew Wiggins thing. Now, Andrew Wiggins was out for personal reasons. He missed 4 games, all 4 games on the road trip. It was the second straight season this happened around the same time of the year. Now, look, there's varying opinions on what public figures and athletes owe paying customers and their employers and explanations. I lean mostly on the side of if the Warriors say they are okay with his absence and the nature of it and the whole open-ended return, because remember what Steve Kerr said, we don't know exactly when he's coming back. If the Warriors are okay with it, I can't help but, fall in line with that, because really I'm not his employer. So if his employer is fine with it, who the heck am I to say something different? But I also do think Andrew has a responsibility to his team. And when people kind of try to compare like NBA players, his job with our jobs, like it's different. You can't compare. Like we aren't public figures. Everything is different. Now, obviously the issues at home, it doesn't matter what your job is. We all have these issues at home and things away from our careers that can really derail us physically, emotionally, whatever it might be. But since Andrew Wiggins has come back, Steve Kerr has said he's good to go. Like, we're going to let him loose, but he's only played about 15 minutes per game. Moses Moody got the minutes over him against the Bulls, down to crunch, down to stretch, and he should have. Mind you, Moses Moody was playing better. Moses Moody was playing harder. Simple as that. He was playing harder. Just use your eyeballs. This is not some hot take. All you got to do is watch, So now Wiggs is out of the starting lineup. It's just a trend to keep an eye on. Now, I think the Warriors absolutely need Wiggins to be playing at his peak if they want to do anything of significance this season. I love Moses. I love Jonathan Kuminga. But look, if the Warriors want to win a championship, which is the goal, I know that even sounds crazy saying it, given their record and position, but it's still a goal whenever you have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green and Steve Kerr leading your team. The goal is to win a championship. So if that is their goal, they're going to need Wiggins. They ain't winning a championship with Wiggins playing 15 minutes per game. I don't care how well Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga are playing. This is a Wiggins who is the second best player on the team that went into Boston and shut up the rowdiest fans in basketball to win a championship. You need a Wiggins somewhere near that Wiggins we saw 2 years ago. So while some people might be excited about the fact that Moses Moody is getting more of an opportunity now with Wiggins seemingly the past 3 games kind of getting thrusted into a background role, that might be exciting in the near term because Moses Moody deserves some of these minutes for sure. Jonathan Kuminga deserves the long leash that he seems to have now. Yes, in the short term, that seems exciting. But, man, they're going to need Wiggins if they're going to want to do anything of significance. Now, before we get out of here, I have to tell you what's on tap, brought to you by Farmers Brewing. What is on tap to you by Farmers Brewing? Have you tried Farmers Brewing yet? If not, it's time to put your lips on a farmer. And we got to take it to the bank. Prediction brought to you by Fremont Bank, full service banking, no compromise. Make a prediction for the game. My predictions, Warriors win. Chris Paul has a triple-double, 13, 11, and 10. But look, that is all we have on Warriors Live. We'll be right back as soon as this one goes final. I'm Jason Dumas. Thanks for tapping in, y'all.
Elevate your kitchen at the Mila Innovation Center at Friedman's Appliance in Pleasant Hill. Out of your dreams and into your